Thank you, Anna and Rowan, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the conference, albeit virtually. Just a quick introduction. My name is Naveed Salman. I'm with Cogenics Consulting. We've been delivering Planful solutions since about 6 years now across many verticals. And today, we're going to talk about SmartyPants vitamin delivery, solution delivery, which we did last March. After this, we're going to have Cheryl from SmartyPants talk about her own experience on this project. Just a quick project background. This was a unique solution for us in two different ways. One was time to value. The window was very short, so any deviation from the project plan would lead to a lot of rework, luxury of which we did not have. Secondly, it was done in March. This past March, there was a lot of changes in the marketplace with COVID shelter in place. And as clients were re-strategizing their methodology, we had to make sure that we capture that into this solution. So strict timeline, restricted time to value, and a lot of delivery unknowns, but we still have to deliver a solution which was scalable, efficient, and adaptable. So how do we do it? If you really think about the common approach to a delivery lifecycle, we have the scoping sessions, followed by the configuration, followed by delivery, and then training. What we did is we have moved away from this, and we have taken a more integrated, agile integrated planning approach. Integrated planning, as you all know, is planning, is cross-functional planning. So you have sales, marketing, accounting, finance. All the planning is done in unison. So a change in any one division impacts the other. So that was that's an iterative approach. And the way you do it is you run forensics on the processes and then create a minimal viable product. This minimal viable product is then reevaluated, and deployed, and redeployed. It goes through a loop until we have a product which meets all the criteria of the end. The end result is what the client needs. So it was a successful implementation for us, but I'm going to have Cheryl over here talk about her own experience with this product.
Thanks so much, Naveed. So I'm going to share some more background about what it was we were trying to achieve here. Our goal was to successfully develop and implement our sales and trade spend forecast templates within 20 days. So why the time crunch? We really wanted to be able to close out Q1 and forecast the rest of the year prior to our board meeting. Now, as we were doing this, we were also transitioning out of a different software and into Planful. So because of this transition, we were completely kicked out of the other system. And so we had absolutely no backup plan. And so that added a level of stress, but we were able, with the help of Cogenics, to get through it. In addition, we also were entering a period of market uncertainty, which we had not planned for. Everyone had started working from home when we started this process due to coronavirus, and that definitely added a level of complexity that we needed to navigate. So how did we achieve success? We had to take a very methodical and thoughtful approach, and I'm going to walk you through kind of the steps we took to get there. So to obtain value quickly while having the vision of creating a complete and dynamic forecasting ecosystem, we decided that a phased approach would be the best route. To kick that off, what we needed to decide first was, what area did we want to focus on? Which part of our model, our full working model, did we want to focus on? And for our organization, everything starts from the top. So that means sales and trade spend. Sales and trade spend is something we forecast monthly. We do many, many iterations of it. And so we needed something that was dynamic and something that allowed us to pivot very quickly. After identifying that, we wanted to focus on sales and trade spend, we needed to build the roadmap on how to get there. How do we get from point A to point B? How do we start from scratch and then have sales eventually, be able to just forecast completely and rely on Planful completely to do their bottoms up sales and trade spend forecast in 3 weeks. So we had to parallel path a few different work streams. The first was working very closely with Cogenics in understanding our revenue drivers, just basically our modeling methodology. Second, Cogenics went back and, came up with a design that we liked, and then we started out to build out the tool. On the side, we were also working on importing all of our existing data. So that meant historical actuals for all of our financials, as well as our existing budget. So the importing piece always takes a little bit of time to clean up all the data so that it's in a format that Planful will accept. And finally, once we had our templates built out, once we've tested those and they work, and then once we've imported all of our existing data that we needed, then we learned how to build out reports. And we use reports in the meantime to really reconcile our data, just double check that everything was correct. And finally, our end goal, the most exciting part that we wanted to achieve, was rolling out Planful to our sales team so that they were able to forecast Q2 through Q4 within Planful for both sales and trade spend at the very detailed level that we do, and as well as utilize the reports that we built for them. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail into each one of these aspects. I think the most important part was defining what success meant to us. So we had an eye, we knew what the end goal was, and we continuously worked to get there. And it was really important for us to ask ourselves, what did we need as an organization to limit interruptions to day-to-day business processes in the short term, while also extracting as much value as we could quickly. And as I mentioned, we decided on sales and trade spend. But why? Why not any other part of our P&L or our balance sheet? For us, like I mentioned, sales really drives the rest of the organization. How we reallocate all of our working dollars really depends on the top line. We also forecast very often, and this is on a monthly cadence. And that is our normal. That could seem like a lot, but that is our normal and our reality. So we needed something that was dynamic, that allowed us to pull in actuals and then reforecast the rest of the year very, very quickly at a very detailed level from both a sales and a trade spend forecast. And why couldn't we just focus on one thing like sales? Well, trade spend, to give a very high level summary of what that is our promotional activity, where our promotional dollars are invested. And so they go hand in hand, as you can imagine. Your sales are driven off of the promotions, and then your sales lifts are, they come from the promotions we drive. So they really are correlated, and you can't forecast one without the other. So having both of those working up and running was super, super important for us. Also, and then other departments within, SmartyPants Vitamins use our sales forecast. Because we were doing this at a period of, craziness with coronavirus, our demand plan team really needed a weekly forecast, and to be able to pull that in detail, they also use our forecast. So it just really drove a lot of our business. And so it was pretty clear that sales and trade spend was what we needed to focus on for phase one. Now, after determining that, what our immediate needs were, we needed to come up with that roadmap. So understanding, the process flow and all the steps we took to get there was super important in laying that out. The first thing we focused on was revenue. We forecast off of customer and off of product, as well as by units. And when it comes to units, that we have two different ways of calculating that, and that adds another complexity there. On top of, understanding our revenue drivers and forecasting methodology, we also needed to build out customer and product hierarchies. This essentially is a way we like to slice and dice our data, right? So a hierarchy, you have your very detailed level, but at a rolled up level, just to get a higher level view, that's how we like to, that's essentially the purpose of the hierarchy. The second aspect was trade spend. As I mentioned, sales and trade, they go hand in hand, and understanding how that relationship with revenue is important. We also forecast trade spend at a very detailed level by customer, by program, by month, by program type, and the category. We have two different types of trade spend categories. One is above the line, and that's promotional activity that affects price. So that's your coupons, your scans, any type of discounts you see in the store. And then we have more marketing-like spend, and that sits below the line, and that trade is treated differently on our P&L. So, there are definitely small intricacies within trade spend that we needed to understand so that our forecast, our template was working for us. And finally, reports. The way we like to set reports is our FP&A team will pre-build a lot of reports that we know the team, our sales team, will use day to day. And that is our budget versus actuals, our version comparison, and our sales and trade reporting. The reason why we like to create them and not allow access to the sales team to create reports is so that they don't accidentally pull a different measure or an incorrect measure and get wrong data. So we like to set those parameters around the reporting. And that was just the last piece of getting all of this wrapped up together for us to roll out the tool to sales. So one of the challenges that we faced while building out the sales forecast templates was the hierarchies. We started off with a multi-level hierarchy, and that meant 4 layers. So we had customer, which rolled up into a customer summary, and the customer summary rolled up to channel, and then the channel rolled up to region. While in our minds, we were like, okay, this is great, we'll just have one hierarchy and it has all these different elements. But what we found was that it did add a little bit of complexity when it came to reporting, and it wasn't as flexible as we liked. So we had to backtrack and unwind that. And then we came to the solution that we would create one layer and one simple hierarchy, and then create multiple alternate hierarchies. So essentially having 4 to 5 simple hierarchies. By doing this really gave us much greater flexibility and a lot more control over our data reporting. And ultimately, it's been working really great for us. And finally, the most exciting part was rolling out Planful to sales. So as any of you guys probably, as most people know, rolling out a new software and having different departments adopt a new software can be very challenging. And we wanted to make sure we were with our sales team every step of the way so that they felt very comfortable. And, and again, we're really having the seamless transition in mind. So the first thing was testing, taking an iterative approach to building out the templates, making sure the calculations were working fine, making sure that the trade spend templates were also calculating correctly, and the relationship between sales and trade, we would be able to test that in report. So we also tested reporting. We also had to test to make sure our actual data were pulling in correctly and that they were reflecting, what our actual data was and what our actual financials were. After a series of testing, we moved on to setting up all the users. And this doesn't mean just giving out emails and setting up an email and logging in. For us, each sales account manager manages only a specific number of customers, and we allow access for each sales member to their customers, to their respective customers. So setting up user controls and user access points to make sure that all of our data is tight. There are no errors that can happen. No one can accidentally delete delete someone else's template. That was very important, especially when you're dealing with, so many customers and so many products. The next step was training. We trained our sales team alongside Cogenics. It was very helpful to have them with us to walk them through it step by step. When you log in, this is the page you will land at. To access your revenue forecast, this is where you go. And once you get here, how do you forecast? Where do you put in your units? Where do you put in your velocity drivers? Where do you put in your number of doors? We walked them through in very detail and really gave them an example just so that they felt very comfortable. And this was the same thing with the trade spend forecast. And after the templates, after training them on the sales and trade spend templates, we trained them on the reports. As I mentioned, we have pre-built standard reports for them. And so we kind of already created a sales team folder. If you want to look at your budget versus actuals reports, this is where you go. If you want to access, version comparisons, this is where you go. If you want to see your customer by product details, this is where you go. So just really hand-holding them through the entire training process was very crucial to making them comfortable and feel good about working in Planful. And finally, and arguably the most important part is maintaining a really strong feedback loop. So constantly communicating with your sales team and making them having them know, we are here as support. And if you have any questions, if you run into any issues, contact us and just message us really quickly and we'll be there to help you. We also sent them kind of like a user manual in addition so that, they had a lot of different points of just areas to be able to find answers to. And we also maintain communication with Cogenics on a daily basis. If we notice, hey, as we went through this initial forecasting process, we noticed this could be a little bit more efficient. Then we can brainstorm, and in phase 2, we can tackle those areas and, go back with that iterative approach and fix those items. So finally, I wanted to, take a big step back and, kind of give you the picture of where we were when we started back in March when we kicked this off and where we are today. So as I mentioned, we were transitioning back in March out of a different tool. We had no backup and we were entering the period of coronavirus. And for our demand team, for our operations team, we actually needed to shift from a monthly reforecast to a temporary weekly reforecast, which is a lot. And unfortunately, we were just getting Planful started. So, we did have to go into Excel for a couple of weeks to maintain a weekly reforecast, just so we know, so that we could plan inventory. But because we were able to get sales forecasting template up and ready in about 20 days, we only limited our need for Excel up to 2 weeks, which for me, that's a huge win when there's just so much going on. So, there was a lot going on back then, but thankfully, and, with the help of Cogenics, we were able to get sales and trade spend up and running and limit the use of Excel. So where we are today, it's been about 2 months now that we've been working with Planful, and I'm very happy to say that we have wrapped up our 2020 reforecast sales and trade spend fully in Planful, and now we are actually wrapping up our preliminary 2021 plan for both sales and trade spend completely in Planful as well, which is super, super exciting. We are also working right now to wrap up our operating expenses templates, and we are testing, forecasting the rest of 2020 and preliminary 2021 operating expenses in Planful. For me, I think that's a huge win. I would love to not manage, dozens of spreadsheets from departments maintaining budgets and planning. So I'm very excited to finally, come to a place where we are able to forecast operating expenses as well in Planful. And moving forward, the next couple of steps is to roll out the operating expenses templates to the rest of the departments, so that they can maintain and they can have ownership over their forecast, and that they can make dynamic changes very quickly. They can see what's in their forecast without having coming to us. They can see their actuals data without having coming to finance, and everything is just in one place for them. And so that would be very exciting. That will be very exciting when we're able to do that. And finally, the last couple of phases is to build out our complex cost of goods sold model. And lastly, our balance sheet. So while we have achieved huge success in phase one with our sales and tradesmen forecast, we still have a long way to go. There's so much more I know we can do with Planful. And I'm definitely very excited to see where we can be in the next couple of months after achieving so much in so little time. Thank you.